Welcome, dear listeners, to Anastasia's podcast, a show that takes you on a cosmic journey for the realms of intuition, divination, and mental health. I'm your host, Anastasia, and I'm thrilled to be your guide on this exploration of the mystical and of the mind. All right, welcome back, everyone. Welcome back, Noah. We're doing another episode of our Zodiac series, and this one is on the zodiac sign of Cancer. And if you haven't listened to the previous ones that we've done with Noah, we're going to have some links below, and you can scroll back on the podcast app, whichever app you're on. We're on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and pretty much everywhere you can find a podcast. And this one is another one that's officially going to be on YouTube as well, so you can watch it too. So we can show some examples of some charts as well and integrate that to create a more wholesome Cancer word experience of this podcast episode. How are you, Noah?
Cool. Thanks, Anastasia. I'm good, pretty good. And you?
I'm pretty good as well. Yeah, I'm experiencing something else astrologically that I think we can talk about on a different episode of podcast. But Pluto is making its first conjunction with my Saturn, which, if you guys are new to astrology, not everyone experiences this in a lifetime at all. And it's a unique experience only because Pluto moves so slowly. So throughout your lifetime, Pluto is not gonna make it around your whole zodiac. Around your whole birth chart. So it will become conjunct and it will meet some of your placements, but not all of them. So for me, I'm lucky enough to, in this lifetime, experience Pluto-Saturn conjunction. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, it's been interesting.
How close is it right now?
Oh, it's pretty close. It's I think 20 minutes apart. So
Whoa,
it's applying still, but it's an exact
nice.
conjunction. And it's the first, I think I calculated 4 times they will meet when
Hmm.
Pluto goes, meaning them Pluto goes for people who don't really know what I'm saying. Pluto goes retrograde, so it moves a little bit further apart again, and it will go back into Capricorn, I think around September. Correct me
Hmm.
if I'm wrong. And
Something
then
like that.
yeah, I think so. And then it'll come back in, I think November, December into Aquarius for its
December, I
final.
think December maybe.
I think you're right. I think it's December for its final time, where it will stay for the next 20 years, 19,
Yeah.
20 years. I think, yeah, I think around then. So it's very exciting, but that's for an Aquarius episode that we're gonna do later. But today we're talking about Cancer, and we were just talking off air. And for one, we just realized that we both have our South Node in Cancer.
We did.
I think that's really cool. I think that makes sense with the fact that we're doing a whole series as well on the podcast together.
Yeah, that's nice. Nice congruence.
I think so, yeah, and the friendship that we've been building, and also because our South Node is the same, our North Node is the same too in Capricorn.
Right.
So I'd love to talk to you about that on the Capricorn podcast
What
too.
degree are your nodes in at?
There
Mine are
are at
13.
around 11 degrees. Oh my
Oh,
goodness.
so very close because mine's
Wow.
13.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
cool.
crazy. That's wild. That's
That
really
means we
cool.
share a similar fate.
We do. We share similar fate. We share probably share similar fated events, and we can discuss that further into the podcast. But first, I want to just dive into what we were talking about Cancer as well as a sign, as an archetype. And I was sharing my research, and you said it was synchronistic with what you were finding in Cancer as well. And you said you have a story. Before we get
Yeah.
into the story, can I just say a few basic things about Cancer? Can we just talk about that? How it's a
Sure.
water sign.
Uh-huh.
It's interesting because it's cardinal, and lots of people don't really get how Cancer can be a cardinal sign as well, because it's
Mhm.
it's known to be so gentle and so compassionate, so empathetic, and cardinal signs like Aries and Capricorn are usually known to be the go-getters. And like Aries and Capricorn, quite equally so. I wouldn't call them necessarily selfish, but they do, what would be a better word for it? They do think about the goal first. They do think about getting something first. They think about um the reward first before they think about other people. That comes a little bit later, I feel
Hmm.
like. But with Cancer, what can you say about Cancer being a cardinal sign?
Well, I like to think, I mean, since there's four cardinal signs, they all share something in common, which is initiating. I like to think of them as being purposeful. But with Cancer, since it's water, we can differentiate it from the other cardinal signs by the fact that it's water. And water likes to like it's about cohesion, bringing things together. So like take the earth sign, for instance. If you have a bunch of dust or dirt or earth, it would just be dry and separate, and there wouldn't be anything solid. You couldn't build a city out of dust. You need to get it to stick together like mud to make bricks and to make walls. And so water is the necessary component. So water is that essential elemental quality that brings things together and makes them usable. So that's one take on water. But with Cancer specifically, since it's cardinal water, because there's two other water signs that are very different from Cancer, since it's cardinal water, it's about creating water. So the first image I always think with Cancer is a spring gushing out of the earth up on a hill somewhere in a mountain, where it's just constantly like bubbling forth, gurgling. And every new instant is a new gurgle, a new outgrowth of water. And it's kind of reminds me of the idea that the universe is continually being created moment after moment, similar to the Big Bang or something. But instead of being an energetic explosion like Aries would be kind of like the Big Bang, like an explosion of energy. There wasn't even matter at that point. It was just, I mean, there was a little bit of matter. There was like hydrogen, not even hydrogen atoms. There was protons, but there wasn't like atoms hadn't even formed yet. So it's like so energetic, the Big Bang, that's Aries. Well, with Cancer, it's a softer Big Bang because water is kind of a softer form of energy. It's like partially solid, but it's not all the way solid. It's still a liquid. It's in the phase of liquid. But it's necessary to have that liquid to make something of the energy and the matter that we have in this universe. So, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
That's on an elemental nature level. But then if water means feelings, then it's the kind of feelings that we are constantly creating, and feelings never end. I mean, unless you're like really dead to the world and so depressed that you can't feel anymore. But I would argue depression, obviously, that even that's a feeling. Like anything could be formulated as some sort of feeling.
absolutely.
And so Cancer, since it's always creating and always gushing forth, is like always has the opportunity to create new feelings rather than being stuck in a feeling like Scorpio. Scorpio can go like real deep, but Cancer has the opportunity to like, it doesn't have to be surface. It can be deep, it can be surface. It doesn't matter. That's not the point. The point is it has all the feelings available to it. And so we're getting further than I meant to with this to answer your question though.
That's okay. That makes sense. And just to add to what you're saying about feelings, I was just thinking about the cardinality again, right? If cardinality is even a word, I don't think I've ever heard it used. But, Gemini, I'm
I
making
like it.
up words as I go. And Aries, for it to be a cardinal sign, the goal is self-expression, right? Like you're saying, the Big Bang explosion. For Capricorn, the goal is a goal. The goal is whatever your aim is. But for Cancer, I feel like when you're relating it to feeling, the goal is to protect, to and to not necessarily to serve, because that's a little bit more Virgo, but to if you think about Mars in Cancer, right? And it's a very protective kind of Mars. It really cares about the people around it. It really does get angry for other people more so than for themselves and their own boundaries. And does that make sense to you? Does that relate to what you're saying?
Um, yeah, maybe. I like the idea of protection. So, the mother bear feeling, because Cancer is often brings in ideas of home and family and tribe or homeland. And so protecting like the strong emotions that relate to home would include protection. But I don't, but I don't, that's so particular to me. It's more about, like just acknowledging that there's raw feelings that come out of nowhere. I mean, they don't come out of nowhere, really. They come from karma and from psychology and from our experiences and stuff, but they kind of come unbidden a lot of times. Like anger might swell up. So Mars and Cancer, like undesired anger. And Mars is in fall in Cancer because Mars is exalted in Capricorn. That's where Mars does really well in Capricorn. Then it gets to Cancer, and the way I see Mars in Cancer is it's like, oh, too many feelings. They're damping my like Mars is I think of Mars as usually being hot, except for Scorpio Mars. And so, and it likes action. But if Cancer has all these different feelings telling it to do all these different things, like it can't focus on its goal as well, maybe. Now, having said that, if Mars is in any sign has a healthy expression, so if you have a healthy expression of Mars in Cancer, then yes, I agree with you. It can become protective, or it can maybe like invigorate the emotions that you want to develop. Like on psychologically, if you're stuck, say you're mad at somebody and then you can't get over it. And you're like, oh, I really need to stop being mad at this person because it's not helpful. Well, instead of the way I see Cancer is instead of just trying to switch out of anger or instead of ignoring it or instead of like engaging it, you have an opportunity using Cancer energy to create a new emotion and focus on that new emotion. It doesn't mean that you're discarding the anger or anything. It's just now you have two emotions. You have anger and you have this new emotion that you have purposefully manifested. Because all of the cardinal signs have the ability to manifest. Like that's the universe has been manifested. And so that's like a way of dealing with your anger that's very specific to the cardinal form. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does actually. I really like how you've mentioned as well that that would be the young or undeveloped expression of Cancer as well, not understanding where your emotions come from. But I feel like even with somebody who's quote unquote enlightened or works on themselves or self-development, you can still get bogged down by an overwhelm of emotion and expressions when you get triggered by something that you've completely forgotten that even happened to you. You can get
Mm.
triggered by an old trauma or an old experience, and you don't really understand. There might be a situation that occurs that might not seem like that big of a deal to other people, but you have an overwhelming amount of emotion around it. So I see what you mean by that being a cardinal expression of it too, in terms of emotional expression. Mm.
Yeah, and the idea of purposefulness is really important to me with Cancer, that you're purposefully creating. Like I've been in many situations, in difficult emotional situations with people where I would just make a decision to be a certain way. And that accompanies strong emotions. But it's just really important to notice it doesn't replace. It might feel like it's replacing the emotions that were there before, but I don't think it actually is. It's just like another layer, and you're accessing that other layer.
Yeah,
And I don't think that's a skill that Scorpio has, and I don't think that's a Pisces thing. I think Pisces has a different method of dealing with emotions.
yes. That's very resonant and very synchronistic to me at the moment because I feel like I've been, once again, working on that same expression. Something has come up recently from my past where I feel like it's in the way, like you're saying, in the way of your goals or in the way of actually doing something that you want to do. And the training ground is, it reminds me of Stoicism, which is the opposite of Cancerite Capricorn, is usually what I relate to Stoicism. And the idea is not that you suppress your emotions. You still allow yourself to feel those feelings when it's appropriate, but you also allow yourself to open up to a new opportunity through having a different reaction. So it's
Mm.
like, okay, I have this emotion, I acknowledge it, but this does not have anything to do with this person or this situation or those people right now or this community. This has to do with my past, which is, opens up the doorway to another connotate to another theme of Cancer is the past, right?
Mm.
Because a lot of our emotions come from the past, come from ancestral trauma sometimes too, but come from our childhoods as well, which is another thing that's relevant with Cancer. And learning how to differentiate between I need to feel this right now, I need to go into a space where I need to really think about where it comes from, maybe journal, maybe meditate. Oftentimes, the best Cancerian way to deal with something is just to cry it out, right? Or to
Mm.
scream it out, to let it go, maybe to punch a boxing bag, whatever you want to do, and then to learn how to react differently to the same situation.
Yeah. Yeah, like so every sign I've been giving a keyword to for these podcasts, and for Cancer, I chose I emote.
Yeah,
Is it cry it out, scream it out, whatever. Cry, yeah, I emote. And I'm going to talk
absolutely.
about my mom. Oh, sorry, go on.
Oh, is she a Cancer sun?
My mom has a Cancer sun with a Cancer Mercury and Venus, like really close to her sun. So it's basically a Sun Mercury Venus conjunction in Cancer. And
Oh,
she is
wow.
like so typical Cancer in this modern world's take on Cancer. Like having all the emotions, very emotional. She shows all our emotions. She doesn't hold them back ever. She has 12 kids. She's all about family and home, and she's just like the perfect Cancer.
That's beautiful. And
So,
she has 12 kids. I always forget how many siblings she
yeah,
has as well, but
yeah.
that is a very Cancerian thing. I have a friend who has a Cancer moon, and she became a mother quite early. I think she was 22, and she has 3 children now as well. So that is such a beautiful expression of a Cancer archetype too, becoming a mother.
Mm.
To me,
Hmm.
that is a very, you said there was Jupiter in Cancer with your mom as well, right?
Not Jupiter's Mercury and Venus. I don't know. She might have more in Cancer, but what I remember is that conjunction between Sun, Mercury, and Venus there.
Yeah, beautiful. So did you want to go into talking about family, about Cancer and childhood, or talking about the past and how it relates to
Um,
history?
when you say the past, that reminds me of the moon, actually. What I'd like to do is tell the story.
Yes, please.
Is that good? Okay. So I wanted to tell a myth because we've touched on the fact that there's mythology with astrology, but we didn't really tell many myths, if any, in the past. So I wanted to tell one that wasn't like really well known because everyone probably, maybe not everyone, a lot of people know the myth of the crab biting Hercules' foot during his fight with something. And was it a Hydra or something? I don't remember. Oh, no, he's fighting the scorpion, right? No, he was fighting. Heracles was fighting. What was Heracles fighting?
I believe it was a Hydra that relates to
Hydra. Okay.
the story. I
So
believe so.
that's like a famous story with a crab. So I want to tell a different story that was less famous. Indeed, I've never heard this story before, and I'm guessing most of you haven't either. It comes from Italian folklore, and I listened to it twice today, so I could try to do a good telling of it. Okay, I'll try to tell a short version too. You ready? The keywords when I searched in the podcast was crab myth. And like this was one of the ones that came up. I was a little surprised with what came, as you'll find out. So there's this king in the ancient days, and he lost his ring. And he put out an announcement. If anyone can find my ring, any astrologer specifically can find my ring, you will be greatly rewarded. And I'm like, oh, I chose a good podcast. I didn't know there's gonna be an astrologer in it. So this dude shows up. He's like, King, I'm gonna do the astrology and look for your ring. I think I'll find your ring. And this guy's name was Crab. So this is not a story about a crab. It's a story about an astrologer named Crab. I was like, okay, let's see where this goes. And we can make some, after I tell the story, we can like get into what it means in terms of the Cancer archetype. All right, so they give him a room, they give him a big book and some stuff to write on. And for a whole month, he like goes through the pages, he scribbles his notes, but he's a poor, illiterate peasant. He has no clue about what any of it means. He doesn't understand, he doesn't know how to read, he doesn't know how to write. he has servants come in and serve him every day, king servants. And his whole plan, he's kind of crafty because he knows how to survive. His plan is to figure out where the ring is using his own methods. He kind of, based on the way the servants treat him, which is like too nice, he starts to get a feeling that the servants stole the king's ring. And so his wife comes to visit one day and he says, "Okay, wife, please hide under the bed. I have a plan. When the first servant comes in, say, 'Here comes number one.' And then when the second servant comes in, say, 'Here comes number two.'" So she hides under the bed, and this is where family comes in. And indeed, the first servant comes in to bring dinner, and this mysterious voice from nowhere that the servant could tell says, "Here's number one," and then here's number two. And they're like a little bit freaked out, and they're starting to feel like, oh, we've been found out. Somehow someone knows that we're the ones who stole the ring. So they meet with each other, they make a plan. They're like, we need to go tell this astrologer that don't like he must find out. He must have known because he's a great astrologer. He must know that we took the ring. We need to just give him some money and bribe him and beg him not to tell the king. So they do that. The astrologer agrees, like, okay, thanks for the purse of money, but you have to do me this. You have to do this for me. Take the ring and feed it to the turkey out in the courtyard. So they do it. So then the astrologer is like, "King, I've discovered where your ring is." The king's like, "Where?" He said, "Just go. It's in that turkey over there." The turkey ate the ring. So they cut the turkey open, and there's the ring. The king's like, "Amazing, you did it. Good job. Here's your money." So then they go to a banquet and they're celebrating. And there is this platter of food that nobody ever knows what it is except for the very rich and the king. Nobody knows what it's called. It's got like legs and a hard shell. And they're like, the king's like, "Since you're a great astrologer, you should know what this food is." Now, the king doesn't know the astrologer's name. He just knows him as the astrologer. And the astrologer is like, "Oh gosh, this is not good. I don't know what this food is." He's never seen it in his life. So he's like kind of banging his head and he starts talking to himself, but it's kind of loud. He's like, "Oh, crab, crab, you really put yourself in a plot here." And everyone hears him like, "Crab, you got it. It's Crab. You must be the greatest astrologer ever." And there is celebration, and that's the end of the story.
That's amazing. Do you know what I want to add before we even get into it? Is I was
What?
just reading Sue Tompkins' book on astrology, and um, one of the themes that she relates to Cancer is poultry,
Hmm.
turkey,
There you go.
chicken. So
Yeah,
there's another theme there, not just crab, but
that's perfect.
they literally fed it to the
Yeah.
turkey to the king's dinner. I think that's hilarious. That was a great story. Thank you for
Yeah,
that.
it's fun, right? So I have a couple ideas about how that relates to the Cancer zodiac sign, but before I begin on those, do you have any thoughts about it?
Well, that was my really first one
Okay. Yep. There you go.
around poultry.
Bam.
There is definitely relation to family and getting that involved. I find it interesting that the servants stole the ring though, because to me, servants usually relate more to Virgo and the sixth house.
Hmm.
And that's interesting because that's where my South Node is in Cancer in the sixth house. So I kind of understand that relation automatically. But what are your thoughts around
So
it?
my thoughts are, and I was thinking about it earlier, and then I was going to write them down, but I didn't have a chance because my daughter asked me if I would help her with math, and I was like, she's never, maybe once asked me to help her with math. I have to say yes, so I did that. So let me think for a second. Um, okay, here it is. Here's my main thought. It's so interesting. Normally, the astrologer is like using mercurial skills to solve the mystery, right? He knows how to read and write. He knows how to study the planets and take declination and um, the zodiacal longitude and like do his calculations and figure them out very carefully. Astrologers are mercurial normally. Some, not always though. There is this other kind of astrologer who's just intuitive. So this specific astrologer named Crab is the opposite of mercurial. He doesn't know anything about astrology. He doesn't know how to read and write. He's just going with his guts and his instinct and his intuition, and he solves the case. So that's a very much can't that's not a Virgo story, right? This is a much more of a it could be it didn't have to be Cancer like Pisces, you could think as intuition and stuff. But Cancer is I don't, what I love about hearing stories and try to figure out how they fit into an archetype is it kind of forces you to be creative and think of things that you hadn't thought of. So what I realized when I was thinking about this is that Cancer also has intuition because Cancer is about newness and initiating and creating. And so intuition is like an automatic connection with something where you're creating something that wasn't there before. Or and maybe it was there, but you're like creating the connection. So it's so quick and automatic. It's like the gap suddenly gets closed when you intuit something. And I can see that as being very cardinal trait. And so I now can see Cancer as having like this intuitive quality where I didn't actually normally think of Cancer as being intuitive before.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I feel like that really quick and the spark of intuition, I always related it to fire signs and Aries, but it makes sense
Mhm.
with cardinal sign, but also with no, I always thought of Cancer as being very intuitive, incredibly intuitive, and I never really understood why. But
Wow.
now that you say that, with the gap
Hmm.
being closed, and in the initial spark of intuition, a very quick intuition mixed with what I always related to water signs intuition, which is an
Yeah.
intuition that allows you to connect to what Carl Jung called the collective unconscious, to that
Right.
access point of the thoughts and the ideas and the primordial images and the history of our humanity and of the soul in general. You know, if you think of
Hmm.
soul being as one thing. So
Yeah.
to have that mixture of cardinal energy and water energy, of course it makes sense that Cancer has an incredible quick intuition, but also an intuition that can connect to something that is beyond our minds.
It's
That makes
cohesive. It draws different things together because water brings things together and mixes them and allows them to, um, cohere. Yeah, it's like the phrase, I have a feeling, like I got this feeling. I don't know why, but I have a feeling. Feelings is water, and like you get a feeling. You're creating a feeling. It's new. That's new water, Cancer. Other forms of new water besides the spring bubbling up, I thought of a couple more things. Rain, that first burst of rain. It's like cloudy and suddenly showers down. That's Cancer image to me. Or if a kid has like a little stick with a bubble and dips it in the soap and then blows that beautiful bubble, that's like a Cancer image to me.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
new water, new fluid. And you used the word primordial a minute ago, and like the primordial waters is not an infrequent mythological characterization for the very beginning of the universe. Like before there was light, there was like the dark primordial waters.
Mm, yeah, it's sort of a mixture between the two. It's this interesting oxymoron of being primordial, which is the new in the beginning, but also being incredibly ancient. And that's what I relate
Yeah.
the Cancer to being ancient. It goes back to another metaphor that I just picked up on from your story. You said the story comes from Italy. Well, Sue
Mhm.
Tompkins in her book describes the countries that could be related to Cancer as well. And she says, and she uses two examples. She says that the countries that have rich history and also are based on this very much belonging sense or the sense of a clan or the sense of patriotism of some sort, but mostly of a family related. So Scotland and Italy is what she uses as two.
Wow, amazing.
I think that's incredible that
Beautiful.
I think there might be some more themes in that story that we both haven't picked up on. Like I'm
Yeah.
interested about the ring itself. And the ring might be also related to the fact that you haven't mentioned it, but I would imagine it might be some sort of family heirloom or some sort of
Mm.
royalty. And family heirlooms, that is such a Cancer archetype as well, relating to family, relating to a clan, belonging to something or someone,
Mm.
but also being the words retro and vintage. I really relate to Cancer as well. I dabble a bit into learning about style and people's fashion as well too. And I often see that Venus in Cancer especially really does like things that are vintage and that are a little bit
Mm.
old or retro to mix it up with something that's a bit more modern.
Mm. Awesome. Yeah, the memory piece to me, I always think makes me think of the moon. And I think I heard that somewhere at one point, but I just like immediately liked it. The moon means memory. And I guess maybe that's like, does every astrologer kind of recognize that? I don't even know.
Yeah, I relate that to memory too. And the way that I see it is the moon watches over us, and it's something
Mm.
that we have been able to see for centuries. So it
Mm.
collects information from humanity
Mm.
and history. It's a
Right.
mirror into our souls in a way that it relates to our feelings, but the memory part is the fact that it absorbs and watches over everything that has
Mm.
happened on planet
Yeah, and
Earth.
there's another association with the watching over and protecting with the story of Diana, the moon, Diana, or her other name Artemis. I mean, I know they're one's Greek, one's Roman, but they really got mixed. Excuse me, mixed together there. So, and you probably know the story of Actaeon, I think is his name. Actaeon was a hunter, and he was walking through the woods with his hunting dogs, and he discovered these beautiful nymphs bathing in the sacred grove, and there was the Diana, the moon, there, naked, and like he's not really supposed to be see the goddess, the moon goddess, naked. So there's different versions of it, but in the end, she turns him into a stag. He runs away, and his own hunting dogs, not recognizing him, tear him apart. So that could probably mean a lot of different things, the story, but on the protection side of it, maybe Diana was protecting her nymphs that she was with. Because maybe, like, I never thought about it until right now when I was telling the story. Maybe she didn't care that she was naked and that Actaeon saw her. Maybe she cared that her nymphs, who were beautiful and also naked, and here's this dude in the woods with his dogs and his bow and arrow, had some malicious thoughts or something. And maybe she was protecting her people.
It's interesting because the deer does, I feel like, relate to the moon as well. I don't think of it as much as relating to Cancer, but maybe it does. But the deer and the deer antlers to me relates to the moon. But
Mm.
she might have been also protecting her vulnerability because the vulnerability of Cancer,
Yeah, that's
the
great.
moon. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people with very heavy Cancer placements or just the Cancer archetype in general, or even human beings in general, this is part of our
Mhm.
traits. We all have Cancer somewhere. Our vulnerability is such a precious part of ourselves that we don't always allow everyone to see. So the
Right.
neediness might be a metaphor for
Mhm.
also emotional vulnerability and
Yes.
vulnerability of our thoughts too, you know?
Yes. And all of those nymphs are different emotions. And she's protecting the emotions, like giving the emotions a place to be and to thrive. And you don't, and like Actaeon is this dude who's trying to maybe, I don't know, maybe choose one emotion over the other, for instance, or maybe, not allow the emotions to bathe freely in the water. And so he has to go down. He's got to be taken down so that the emotions can thrive.
Interesting that it had to be a man represented in that story as well, being that the masculine is not very famous for being connected to their emotional world as well. And I'm not saying that men aren't, but
Not their claim to fame. No.
no, no, it's not the claim of fame. It's mostly the conquering and the um different kind of protecting
They're
as well.
very well known for that.
Yes, I've heard in history, right? We'll talk about history and stories. So I just wanted to bring something up as well, and I thought maybe you can help me develop that thought. I've been thinking
Okay.
a lot about this, and I find that fascinating that a lot of the times, especially with music and poetry, very famous musicians, especially most people in 27 Club. So you obviously heard the 27 Club is
Mhm.
infamous for artists, especially music artists, that passed away when they were 27.
Yeah.
And most of them have moon in Cancer.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
That
That's
is that is so wild to me. I think it relates to, for one, the moon in Cancer's talent and ability for portraying emotions poetically for poetry, because is something that you can't put into words. You can only put it into metaphor and into music. And music is one of those things that we can truly feel, that can truly bring up well, yeah, it can truly bring up feelings in general that we don't really have words for. It's
Yeah.
very far away from mercurial storytelling.
Hmm.
Mercurial storytelling, it's different. It's, usually, like I was saying before off air, Gemini, it's very packed with information and divergence and detours in the story as well, right? And the Virgo one is very clean, it's very tidy, it's very much chronological. But with Cancer storytelling and the history, it's packed with let me get an emotion out of you. I'm feeling something and I want you to feel the thing that I'm feeling. And that's what I feel music is in general. So I just wanted to bring up some charts, if that's cool with you, and just show
Yeah,
you.
let's do it.
Yeah, this is the four charts I was looking at. Let's look at it one by one. So first of all, Kurt Cobain. And Kurt Cobain, for the younger audience, actually, I've heard that Nirvana in general has been very popular amongst the new generation. Isn't that
Oh,
crazy?
wow. That's
Yeah,
great.
so people know who Kurt Cobain is, but he has Jupiter and Moon in Cancer. So did Courtney Love. She's actually Cancer Sun and Cancer Moon.
Hmm.
Her story is tragic in its own way, very different from Kurt's. She lost her husband when she was very young. She was, whatever. I know there's lots of controversies around her and whether or not she was involved in his death, but we're not going to get into that. That's that's not what we're looking at. But
Hmm.
the emotional overwhelm and the talent that comes with the writing of a story in a way that relates to people even generations after. I think it's incredible representation of the moon in Cancer, as well as, of course, he's a very heavy Pisces, and he even says that a lot. And he's one of his songs, Heart Shaped Box, he mentions that he's a Pisces, so he was very much interested in astrology. I don't know how much you know.
From what I heard, his suicide note had a quote, sad little Pisces, unquote, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I believe that's true. He did mention that I'm just a sad little Pisces and kind of like I don't know what to do with all these feelings, right? So I
Mhm.
don't know, maybe if he knew a little bit more about astrology and he knew that he also had a moon in Cancer, that would make sense to him, that it wasn't just his representation of his sun sign and who he was and self-expression. It was the overwhelm of emotions in general. What can you comment about this particular chart?
Well, the first thing I noticed is that his moon is exactly on my south node. So that makes me
Do you
feel good
enjoy
because
Nirvana?
I freaking love Nirvana. I think
I
Kurt
love
Cobain
that.
is absolutely brilliant, amazing. He's like, there's no one like him. I'm not saying he's my favorite, but he's like certainly stands out as being exceptional. And also his Mars is exactly on my moon. So
Right.
I like that.
Very cool. Well, that makes sense then that you really enjoy his music as well. And
But to answer your question in a less personal way and more general, Jupiter is not only does the moon live in Cancer, but Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. So like he's got both of the positive planets for Cancer in his sign when that sign when he was born. So that like makes his Cancer actually really powerful. And it's in his 11th house of groups, friends, associations. It's a very public house. It's not the most public house, I guess, which would be 10th or career, but it is it's a people house, the 11th. So like showing his feelings, wearing his feelings on his sleeve, he's obviously like, and Jupiter being large, so like manifesting all of his feelings for the people without apology.
I like
That's
the
the
puns.
first house. What's that?
I like the puns without apologies. It's one of his songs. No apology.
Oh, oh, is it? Okay, that's
Yeah,
fun.
it is. I did a deep dive into his chart about a couple of years ago, actually. So
Oh, really?
very
That's
excited.
nice.
That's when I actually felt like I've always liked it, but I completely fell in love with it when I've learned more about him and the
Mhm.
music and where the songs came from. I'm glad you mentioned Jupiter. I'm gonna show you something else in a minute, but I just want to say it is interesting that he's known to be the best songwriter of his generation, if not of punk music in general. No offense to Smashing Pumpkins or anything,
How
but
dare you?
dare I? How dare I? But
Well,
here's
you know
some.
what else? He's got this like trine with Neptune and Vesta. Like Neptune and Vesta, partile conjunct, like concentrate. Vesta's concentration and like a kind of a meaningful devotion. So this devoted, imaginal, uh, musical ability in Scorpio, like perfectly basically trining his big Jupiter, magnifying his emotions. And in between there is his rising, his ascendant with Jupiter, which is also conjunct. So, with like close to Pluto, so with great psychological depth. So this bam 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 Cancer to Virgo to Scorpio like very much give a lot of umph, and that makes like across from the ascendant there is Chiron, right? With Venus. So there's a very, like, you can even see in the little triangles and stuff in there, there's a really nice relationship between Jupiter, Uranus rising, his Vesta Neptune conjunction, and then all kind of releasing into his pain and his wounds and healing the public with his own cries out in the seventh house in a personal way. It's like he's speaking to each one of us personally through his pain.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
it's right there with Venus. It's like Venus and Mercury, the two personal planets are just enclosing this wound and the descendant, and Mercury rules his rising. So it's like there's this congruence of his personality and identity being led by his voice, Mercury, in conjunction with Venus in his wound. So it's all very nice. It's pretty powerful.
I love when you say that. It's very personal the way he speaks to us. It does feel like when you
Hmm.
listen to his music or even watch his interviews, it really is hard to believe that he's gone. It's almost like he's still around and he's still talking directly to you. There's
Maybe
something
that's how people felt about Elvis. Maybe that's why they said Elvis never died.
probably. Oh, really? Maybe.
Well, I don't
Well,
know. Haven't you ever heard Elvis never didn't really die?
I have, and I've heard a conspiracy theories, but Marilyn Monroe never died too. I think it's
Yeah,
really
I
hard
mean,
for people to let go of someone that
exactly.
is
Yeah.
incredibly iconic to them and somebody that
Mhm.
really speaks to them too. I like that
That's
you
right.
mentioned the Chiron Venus Saturn conjunction, like what you were saying. I just want to add to what you were saying in different words. The music that he created, the art that he really solidified, right? Solidified Saturn through art, Venus beautified his pain, Chiron. And most of his
Mhm.
music was written from his pain, from the way that he grew up, from his heartbreaks, from the fact that he felt so alone. Even when he
Mhm.
was surrounded by people and family, he couldn't really overcome that pain, that loneliness that he felt, that he convinced himself that he was in. So yeah, that's amazing. Anyway, just just time-wise, let's move on. But I just wanted to say I love that you mentioned Jupiter in Cancer too, because here's two other examples, and I want to show two of the moon in Cancer and the 27 Club, and two amazing artists, Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin, both passed away when they were 27 for
And
different
Jimmy
reasons.
has the moon at 27 degrees.
He does. He does.
Yeah.
And that's interesting because from what I know from Jimmy's story is that there was a lot of pain related to his mother especially and the lack that he felt, and he has the, let's just look at his chart separately first, the lack of motherly affection and motherly love that he felt, and Pluto's not conjunct, but it's pretty close to that combination of Moon and Jupiter. And Moon
Hmm.
and Jupiter are conjunct each other,
Hmm.
really intensifying that experience of a moon in Cancer.
Hmm.
What can you say about that?
Well, as much as I like Kurt Cobain, sometimes people have a favorite all-time artist. I'm one of those people, and my favorite all-time artist is Jimi Hendrix.
Oh, amazing. I love that. I
Yeah,
love
so
how I'm
I've
bringing up
like
your favorites today.
I've been kind of avoiding his chart because it's like so much. I was thinking if I ever look at his chart, I just want to write a book about it. And so now here's his chart. I think I have looked at his chart before, but not in a long time. So it's interesting to see it again.
I hope you do. I hope you do. I really feel like he comes through. When I was studying him and I was reading his biographies, looking at his chart, I really felt, and I usually play the music in the background. I really felt like he was coming through for his music
Mm,
and answering my questions in my head that I had about him for the songs that were playing
nice.
on
That's
shuffle.
awesome. Yeah, and he's got a grand trine too, at almost the same degree that Kurt did, but where Kurt's was in no, I'm wrong. Never mind. I was confused. He just has a trine between the ascendant and the IC. 24, the fire signs. But that does not connect with Leo. I mean, it's like loosely connects with Leo, but not very much.
Well, it's still,
So he
it's not.
doesn't have a,
Yeah, like Mars is a little bit further away, but you can still consider, depending on the orbs that you're using, you can still
yeah,
consider that a trine with Ceres and Mars there as well. So
yeah,
it's a water trine in a
yeah,
way.
little loose for my orbs, but yeah, I mean, you could say Mars and Ceres down there in Pisces, and then Jupiter are, they're kind of they're trine-ish for sure. But yeah, the Jupiter and Moon together, that's powerful. Like more, I mean, yeah, I thought Kurt's Jupiter and Moon were powerful. Here, they're even closer together. And
Yeah.
that's just like big feelings and just showing them openly. It's the eighth house instead of the 11th for Kurt. So the eighth house is, I think of eighth house as sharing our values and power. And Jimmy was like probably he's such a I think of him as being a very unselfish person. I don't know Jimmy, so that may not be entirely true, but like that's how I think of him. Watching him in an interview with was it Dick Cavett or something? He just was like when Dick said, "What's it like to be the greatest guitarist in the world?" The way he handled, I don't remember his exact answer, but I remember him just not really taking that seriously because he doesn't think that's true, right? Just like when they said, Jesus, are you the son of God? He's like, you say that I am. Like, I don't, it's not my business to say that I'm the son of God. I may be, but it's not my business to say that I am because that wouldn't really work out so well if I did. It
Yeah,
doesn't,
it's the humble nature of
yeah,
Cancer.
the humility. He's
It's,
so humble. I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it. And when he sacrifices his guitar by lighting it on fire for the people, like I really feel he did that genuinely, and I think it mattered. Or when
yes.
he does the Star Spangled Banner and puts bombs in there, like that's for the people. That's like an anthem for the people who are dying, rather than anthem for the victors. It's an anthem for the loss of war.
Uh,
So it's like he's sharing the pain with the people, sharing um, the space with others rather than just like shining in his. It's not like a fifth house
yeah.
Cancer where he's like, I'm awesome Cancer. It's the magnificent feelings of Cancer being shared. And
And the
and it
way, yeah, the way that everyone says that
ultimately,
well, everyone just stopped when he started playing Star Spangled. Banner, sorry,
Okay.
is that how you call it? Yeah. Did I
Star
just
Spangled Banner.
thank you. Thank you. I'm not American, so I mixed it up. But the way that they said everything just stopped and everyone stopped doing what they were doing
Cool.
at the festival at Woodstock and they all listened in, I think that's amazing and gorgeous.
Yeah.
Um, Sorry to interrupt you, but I got really excited in my Sagittarian way. Talk about
Yeah,
Sagittarius,
good.
right? And I wanted to mention that both Kurt Cobain and Jimmy had serious mother wounds that
Okay.
really allowed them to come through. Kurt was kicked out by his mother, not really, his father was not really there for him either. And Jimmy's mother walked away from the family early on and was never really present. And she passed away when when Jimmy was, I think, in his 20s or something. And it really created a pain or a gap or a hole in the relationship with his woman with women in general. But the way that he was dealing with it is through the storytelling for music, and he didn't think of himself as a good singer too, which is interesting. And he didn't think of himself as a good songwriter. He didn't want to be. He wanted to play guitar. So I think that's beautiful. I have a really strange um, theory that
Hmm.
that Kurt Cobain is the reincarnation of Jimmy, and I'll explain
Oh,
why.
wow.
Yeah, I know it's crazy, but
Awesome.
I love playing with that idea. I don't actually believe it, but I love playing with that idea because Jimmy was obsessed with guitar for all his life, and you know this because you love his music, and he
Mm.
played every day. But when it came time to actually becoming a professional artist, and when
Mhm.
he was told, you got to sing if you want to be on stage, and if you want to make a life out of this. You have to sing and write music, and he didn't have the practice of it. And then Kurt, he he had the skills of the guitar as well, but he was known for his voice and he was known for his singing, songwriting. Does my theory make sense to you?
But Kurt's guitar is phenomenal.
That's what I mean.
He's not phenomenal because he can play a lot of notes fast. He's phenomenal because his style is so distinctive
Mm.
and unique. And Jimmy's style was completely distinctive and unique as well. He was more
Well,
skilled on a technical level, but he's not the most skilled. There are plenty of guitarists more skilled than Jimmy, but nobody played anything like Jimmy until Jimmy. And then, of course, that trickled down through culture. But
true, but arguably he's probably still to this day, even though he died in the 70s, one of the best guitar players in the world that ever existed, if not the
I
best.
mean, yeah, he's my favorite. But a lot of that comes from his particular way of bending notes and playing. Like his style is what, to me, his style is what's so impressive, not just the technical proficiency.
True, true. To be able to do the things that he's done with guitar in general, playing with his tongue and things like that. Obviously, I feel like Ozzy Osbourne took that to the next level as well, like you're saying. But it's just the things, the crazy showmanship that he did with the guitar is was just unique and one of its kind at the time, for sure. Now, let's move on a little bit
Mhm.
to another amazing voice in history, and it's Janis Joplin. Also died at 27, also has Jupiter and the moon in Cancer. How
Also, I
incredible.
completely adore. I can't believe she has Jupiter. Well, they were born about a year apart. So they were both in the same Jupiter. Let's see, 43. What was Jimmy? 42. So they're both born. They're in the same like Jupiter.
Yeah,
What's
yeah,
the
they were contemporaries.
cohort?
And there was
Yeah.
rumors that they had romantic encounters or something, but
Oh,
I
really? Yeah, they're
never.
in the same cohort, and just the fact that the moon's there means that, yeah, it's like one in 12 a chance. But I mean, yeah, it's amazing that these three amazing artists all have Jupiter and Moon and Cancer. That's so
I know. Just wait. I'm
I
not quite
love
done
that.
with it, but yeah.
I mean, Janice will make me cry. Like Jimmy won't make me cry, but he just like gets me feeling like amazed and zest for life. Janice will make me like weep.
Yeah, she really gets to you with a voice.
Yeah.
Incredible. And just that power, the powerhouse of the voice. And then you look at the images of her, and she's this small, petite woman, right? Even though she didn't think of herself that way. But like for someone who have this this much energy in her singing. I think it's incredible.
Didn't they all have, don't they have all have Mercury and Venus really close together? And Jimmy had Mercury and Venus in the first house too, right? At least Mercury. Mercury was with the sun.
Let's check. Yes. And Jimmy.
Jimmy
Yes.
has Mercury, Sun, Venus. They all have Venus and Mercury close and Sun.
Yes, they
So they
do.
all have basically, and that's not like entirely unknown, but it certainly is stands out considering they also have Jupiter and Moon in Cancer. And
And
they all
Venus,
have ascendants around 25 degrees, don't they? I think they
I
did.
believe so.
24, 25.
Yes, they
Yeah,
do.
Jimmy's is at 24. Kurt's was at
Oh,
23. And then Janice is at 25.
good eye. Good
Thanks.
investigation work. Thank you, demonstrator. Didn't notice that. I wonder what that would mean, and I think I'd like to think on that. Would but maybe we can discuss that on the Ascendant podcast or something.
Yeah.
That is an interesting note. And the Mercury and Venus conjunction as well. I feel like Venus does relate to not just art, but the voice too. And all of them have, even though Jimmy did not believe he had a great voice, it's just it was quite it was quite deep in the way that it really grasps your attention and puts you into the zone in the atmosphere, right?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, but I don't know much about Janice.
I
So
don't know anything about her life either.
neither. I've always wanted to read a biography, and I feel like I will one day. I just know that she had a lot of insecurities around her looks, especially, and the way that she was, and I feel like that could be partially, Leo, Chiron thing. I
mhm,
don't know anything about her relationship to her mother, but I would imagine, psychologically speaking, someone who's insecure about their looks for no reason, because I think she had a unique look, and I think she was still a
mhm,
very beautiful woman.
mhm.
It does usually relate to a mother one, but I don't want to make any assumptions that I
Yeah,
don't.
and I don't know either. But I guess I could see why it would relate to a mother wound, but
Mhm.
I could also see why it might not.
True,
But
true. It might not, might be separate.
Jimmy also had Black Moon Lilith in Cancer, I think.
Right. Well, they were born so close. That probably is.
Yeah, so are you using the mean or the true note, the
I'm using
true
the
Lilith?
mean for the
Oh, the
black.
mean. Okay. All right. So if it were
Is
true, it might be different.
my
So
baby.
now we got Cancer in the sixth house. So
Mm.
for Kurt, it was in the 11th. For Jimmy, we moved down to the eighth, and now we're moving down to the sixth. So I know you like to associate six with service. So maybe we can
One of
think
the
of James as serving in some way here.
one of the things. Well, also the way that I associate six in Cancer is if you've done the self work and you really understand the way that you like to, I suppose, organize your day and your health and your routine, is that it is really important to listen to your intuition when it comes to your health and your routine. It's really important to understand, like, is it a day to work really hard, or is it a day for self-care? So there's
Mm.
just, I feel like, from personal experience as much as client work as well, that is to me the moon in Cancer in the sixth house, and service as well too. It's someone who does like to make sure everyone's feeling good and everyone is well, especially emotionally when people are around you. I would
Mm.
imagine that it's someone that makes sure, hey, are you happy? Is everything okay? Do you want to talk about something?
Yeah, that makes sense because the fifth house is about like self-expression and buoyancy. So the sixth house is like, okay, let's rein it in. Let's pay attention to all the things that are going on and make sure we have a complete understanding. Let's integrate. Sixth house is like integrating all the things and making sure that they're all good. So that makes sense that what you just said would follow from that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, anything else you'd like to say about Janice, or should we move on and look at another chart?
Um, I guess move on. Yeah.
All right. So, another artist that I don't really know much about, but he died, he didn't die in his Saturn return, but he died on the verge of it. He died at 26. And that's Mac Miller. I don't know if you know much about Mac Miller, but he is very similar to Janice. in terms of the whole chart. Like they have the
Hmm.
ascendant pretty much at the same degree, also Scorpio rising
Hmm.
and sorry, Scorpio rising. Interesting Freudian slip. Aquarius rising and Cancer in the sixth house too. And funny enough,
Huh.
he has the South Node in Cancer as well.
But not Jupiter.
Not Jupiter. Not Jupiter. Very different expression of it. So, how would you differentiate the free artist that we just looked at with Jupiter and Cancer to someone who doesn't have that but has a South Node in Cancer instead?
Well, I don't know Mac Miller very well. I did hear a couple songs from him a few months ago. I listened to some of his songs, I think, but I don't really remember them. So I can't say much about that. I mean, his huge stellium in the to the east of the chart really stands out. But to answer your question, Jupiter always magnifies, and it does very well in Cancer. Um, So without that there might be a more muted expression of the moon in Cancer comparatively. But since Jupiter is in Virgo instead, then that benevolence that Jupiter gives, that optimism, the natural leadership and freedom that Jupiter gives, now would have a Virgo quality. So rather than being just so much feeling that he's functioning on, he's also functioning with a little bit more precision, maybe. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know his music, so I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I'm
But
I'm not really familiar as well as much, but I do know that his last music video that he did was of him in a coffin, and
hmm,
that was a few months before he passed. And that's quite eerie in a way, but also like predicting his own downfall. And the song was called Self-Care, which is
oh,
interesting
really?
relating to cancer. And it was almost a um I wouldn't say a metaphor, but ironically, he wasn't really singing about the proper self-care that you would want someone you care for to engage in. It was about the his his issues with addiction, like to cigarettes,
Hmm.
drugs, and other vices that he was into. But
Okay.
also, just to mention, the only thing I know is that how much he resonates to people. And that's what I've seen as a pattern in all the four artists that we've seen so far is the music that seems very, very personal. And that's what I feel like when I speak about cancer and music and poetry in a way that I'm not just talking about my emotions. My emotions are human emotions, and that's why it resonates to other people's feelings, you know.
Hmm. Nice. Yeah. Oh, and the South Node. I mean, South Node on one hand means mastery over that which you've accomplished over the last 10,000 lifetimes. So
Mm.
whenever you have, I mean, if his South Node's in the same place as Moon, then maybe he has maybe there's some sense in which he's very familiar with all the different moods that he experiences,
Yeah.
rather than being like surprised by them or something. That's my first thought about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting. Look, I could be going all day with Cancer archetype in general and music. We're just looking at the moon, but
That's
like I
awesome.
mentioned, Post Malone, Lana Del Rey. Do you enjoy Lana Del Rey as well?
I don't know her. I mean, I've heard of her. I've heard her music, maybe a little, but I'm not familiar with her music at all.
So she has a big stellium in Cancer too, and
Oh,
she
okay.
relates to, people, especially it's very, I suppose it is very female music, but just as the last example, I think it's interesting because I want to go back to Jupiter and the moon. They're not conjunct, but they're pretty close
For
in.
Lana?
Hmm?
For Lana? For who?
No, I wanted to show because we're just sticking to the moon, right? Taylor
Mhm.
Swift.
Oh, Taylor Swift also has a moon Jupiter.
She has a moon and Jupiter both in Cancer, and I was just saying how funny it is that we're doing this episode when she just released her last album and she just released a video with
Right.
Post Malone, who has the
You like
sun.
released it today?
Literally the moment we started recording.
That's awesome.
How how synchronistic is that?
Well, now I have to go listen to Taylor Swift and give
You
her
have
another.
you have to. And the music, I mean, I've listened to a couple of songs on my drive yesterday back home, and it's called the Tortured Poets Department. which to me is just, everything that we looked at,
Well,
Janus,
Scorpio. And look, Mars rising at 25 degrees again. What the heck, man?
crazy.
Up with
Yeah.
this 25 degrees rising
So
degree.
if you'd like, maybe you can take that and into research and let me know because I'm curious. I'm super curious, but I'm doing so many different research at the same time. So if you want
Mm.
to, I would love to hear your take on why they're all in late degrees ascendant.
I will
Maybe I should
consider
have been a
that.
musician with my late degrees and my ascendant, but
Well, I'm a
unfortunately, I don't have the
musician.
talent.
I have a 10 degree ascendant. I'm a musician. So maybe
Play
that's my
guitar,
problem.
right?
I'd be a
Oh no.
famous musician right now if I was born like 45 minutes later or something, hour later.
Right, right, because obviously that's how it works. Yeah.
I should have
That's
held
it.
out a little longer, Mom. Why did you have to have me at
Exactly.
7 or
Just 30 more
9:14?
minutes, Mom, and
Yeah. Could have been right up there within the 27 club with all of our favorite
oh
musicians.
God, hopefully not, But it's good to see someone like Taylor Swift actually. What I like about her chart as well is we looked at a lot of 27 Club, and the four examples that we looked at are really have been the tortured society, like the torture poets department, really the
Mhm.
people who had incredible talent in expressing their feelings and resonating with people, but couldn't deal with whatever it is, the trauma or the pain that they were going through, and passed away too soon. And Taylor, she takes her pain. All her music is about her heartbreak.
Mhm.
Most of
Okay.
her music, right?
I
And that's
don't know if you say so.
well, what she's famous for is singing about her breakup songs. And
Oh,
there's
okay.
a meme going around where she dates or goes where she dates somebody and then she writes a song about them or
Oh,
about
I
the
see.
heartbreak that. So even John Mayer, which is funny because John Mayer also has a moon in Cancer. So
Hmm.
she has a couple of songs about him.
Oh,
Well, so anyway, now that I've rambled enough,
maybe.
do you have anything else to say about this chart?
Well, she's got, okay, so now we got a ninth house Cancer, and she got all this stuff in the first house. So this 1, 5, 9, the first, fifth, and ninth houses make a nice trine, and in everyone's chart, and this time it's the water signs. So, like that's the personality, your expression through the fifth into your some kind of belief, like your particular beliefs and how you find meaning in life, kind of is could be considered ninth house. Ninth house is it's not like eighth. Like when we had the eighth house Cancer, we had something very intimate. That was Jimmy's. Jimmy had the eighth house Cancer. It's very intimate and like felt and it's like very deep and goes really personally into this shared space. With Taylor Swift, I'm not a Taylor Swift fan. So like maybe that's what other people get from her too. But just using the astrology, I would say the ninth house is not as deeply felt as the eighth house. It's more, if you think of it as an international or like a long distance travel thing, it's more kind of spread out. It's like after the eighth house where you get intimate and you get to know each other really well and you go to bed together, then you get to move out into the world together and explore. So the ninth house, it's not more superficial than the eighth house. Surely none of the houses are superficial, but it's not as invested in intimacy as the eighth house. And so that certainly works with my take on Taylor. Like as little as I've listened to Taylor Swift, I've listened to her quite a bit just because my daughter loves her, and so I've heard her for that reason a lot, like in on the car rides and stuff. And it just seems like she's more like she's kind of out there for. To me, it seems like she's there for the people, like in a way that is very accessible. And um, I don't know, maybe I'm not speaking very well about it. I feel I'm at a loss, I guess, because I don't know her very well. That's my thoughts.
Yeah. I think that is very relevant to what you're saying. You don't mean to say it's superficial, but it's
No.
shorter lived, and that's what obviously the rumors are that her relationships are short-lived. And I don't mean to say that in a negative sense, just as a,
It's more surface like. The ninth house is more surface than the eighth house. And that
yeah,
I love the ninth house. Like it's one of my it's the house of religion and philosophy. It's great. So maybe she like embodies some kind of philosophical truths for people and is able to share those with great feeling, Jupiter, moon, and maybe people are healed from her vibe
yeah.
without having to get like into that secret space that Jimmy gets into in the eighth house.
Mm, mm, right.
It's not so
Or
secret. It's like out there. It's just more flamboyant than ninth house and eighth house.
yeah, or giving so much, I suppose, to the people like Mac Miller in the sixth house, rather than
Mm,
keeping some for
yeah,
yourself.
maybe Mac Miller was like kind of sacrificial in some kind of way. I don't know.
Yeah, I suppose in Janis Joplin as well, the sixth house, sacrificial in some sort of way. Just giving away um what should what should help you serve you instead of others, and not knowing the balance. I also find it interesting. I just looked it up, and Taylor Swift's most famous song is "Shake It Off." Your daughter's
Yeah,
probably
I know
played
that song
that
pretty
for you.
well. Yeah, she played that a lot.
Yeah, I bet. So that's interesting when you relate that to something that's a little bit more surface based, because
Mhm.
it's quite a fun, playful song, and she's singing about the fact that she's not very she became infamous at some point. And then eventually she sings a song about how she just shakes it off. She doesn't really care what people say. She doesn't,
I mean,
and
that's
she
awesome. I
very
mean, she
just
has her son in
simple.
Sag too. So this her Sag son kind of supports archetypally supports her ninth house Cancer placements.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So it's ruled by that placement as well. I find that interesting. Also, I believe, like, I don't really know much about that, so correct me if I'm wrong, who was ever listening to it, but I believe she's the wealthiest artist now, especially after her last.
Oh, yeah. I think she might be her. Or, yeah, maybe you mean she's surpassed Beyonce.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. It
And
just
notice she does not have a Mercury Venus Sun conjunction at all. They're like totally far apart from each other.
they're not even in the same sign.
Yeah, they're all in different signs. I
In
mean, you
whole
can't get
sign,
much farther
especially
than
the
that.
different houses. I think they're in different
Yeah,
houses in Placidus too,
cool.
but I don't know much about Placidus. But yeah, she does. And there's a Mercury Uranus opposition with that moon and Jupiter in Cancer as well.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's got a lot going on there in Capricorn.
Yeah, yeah. All right then. Well, this is our this is our artists. Do
Yeah.
you what else do you would like to share about Cancer so
Well,
far?
I have so many notes, and we don't need to go. Well, I'm not going to go through them. I'm just kind of going to cruise them real quick, just to make sure I didn't forget anything that I like really wanted to talk about. So, for instance, I wrote down that spiritually, like I have a bunch of keywords, like for Cancer, like womb. Amniotic fluid is that cancer fluid and that births. So like motherhood, womb. Um, Nurturing, volatile, raw. I really like the word raw for Cancer. You know how there's certain people that tend to embody a sign for you as you get to know astrology, you get to know people who have certain signs and placements. I don't, maybe that's not true for you, but for me, I kind of think of those people as like embodying this sign, like my
Mhm.
mom being one of them. Well, there's another person I know who embodies Cancer in a very different way. And so it's good that when those people are different, then you're not just thinking cancer is one thing, because obviously cancer is like a thousand things. So on that level, there's something raw about cancer with this other person I'm thinking. There's something kind of gutsy and um, like not willing to, like not sacrificial, like purposefully just not selfish, but strong and making sure they vouch for their own feelings. You know what I mean? Like standing up for their own feelings. That's also Cancer. Like the protective bear, the protective Diana of the woods with the bow and arrow. So
Yeah.
so Cancer can be vulnerable, yes, because like the crab is vulnerable underneath its shell, but it also can be uses pincers. And so it's got both of those sides. I was thinking how like spiritually Cancer can water can be associated with like peace and purity and cleansing. You know, you can get like bathed in the water when you're become a Christian or whatever. It's just water is like universally a very cleansing archetype and healing and pure. But that's always when we think of clean water. But what if the water is dirty? What then? Where does dirty water belong in the Cancer sign? So that's just kind of an open question I'll leave for the audience or for you if you have a thought on it.
Yeah. Well, not sure about the dirty water, but maybe that my answer to what you were saying about your example and your friend who is very protective of his vulnerability and his feelings. Like that story reminds me, or reminds me of that story that you told about the Diane and how she turned the hunter into a deer. Yeah, it's a
Hmm.
protection, but also maybe the dirty water is the what when we talk about the not the lesser, but the expression of cancer at its less evolved, I suppose, state, you could say. And that is the cancer theme. One of the theme is hoarding of things. It's clinging because it's a crab. It clings to things. It has this protective shell, yes, from the outside world, but it can also that's why it relates to history so much because it has a hard time letting go of things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that also goes back to our interpretation of the people that, passed away at 27. It's their inability to let go of certain emotions and certain feelings, not knowing what to do with it. And that's when you talk about the dirty water is learning how to, I suppose I want to say cleanse yourself and learning how to churn that dirty water into something that is refreshing, into something that is actually heals you and other people rather than destroys you internally. Because when I think of cancer, and again, going back to our beginning of our conversation, Mars and Cancer, right? The emotions, when areas can explode on people, Cancer
Hmm.
implodes,
Cancer implodes
implodes. So it,
because
it
a
destroys
it's a
itself
yin
from the
sign.
inside.
It's like an inward receiving sign rather than a outward sign.
Yeah.
I mean, that's funny because I normally have been thinking of Cancer as like this gushing spring, but it's kind of a soft gush. When the water comes out of the earth, it's like soft. You can barely see it. I mean, it's just kind of like trickling usually. It's not like a geyser. So I've been thinking of it as being explosive, but like, of course, this is a feminine sign. Of course, it's also receiving, and then like it would be imploding as well. Yeah, and then in terms of the dirty water, I was thinking how, you know how they'll say like a clear mirror will show you what you really are, or a clear window you can clearly see through to see reality. Well, clear water would be like clearly seeing or feeling your emotions. So dirty water would be not clearly feeling your emotions. So being confused, having confused emotions.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. That is one of those things where cancer can turn on itself instead of becoming healing for itself and for others, it becomes self-destructive.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'd like to mention a couple of things about well, I could quickly mention the tarot correspondence that I follow. The Cancer sign corresponds to the Chariot card. And so I'm not going to talk about it because I don't think we need to unless you want to
Hmm.
this time.
Yeah,
And then,
we've talked for a bit now. I
yeah,
think we've mentioned a lot of things.
yeah. And then, but on the astronomy, I'd like to make a couple of comments on the astronomy of it. So
Yes.
the first degree of Cancer corresponds to the solstice. And here in the northern hemisphere, the summer solstice, so the highest point the sun gets in the sky before it turns around and starts going back lower again. Or if you're in the southern hemisphere, the opposite. But either way, it's this like high point. It's this like extreme. It's an extreme point for the sun to be in the first degree of Cancer. And I think of Cancer as being an extreme sign. And then in terms of the constellation, it's the dimmest constellation of all the zodiac signs. It's the I mean, there's just a few stars. They're not very bright. There is a very bright star cluster in the middle of Cancer. And actually, in if I can quote, who was it? Ptolemy. He
Hmm.
described the star cluster as a nebulous mass in the breast of Cancer. And it's
Yeah.
got like 1,000 stars. It's about 600 light years away. And it's kind of like an open cluster. So it's not real tight, but you can see it with your naked eyes in a dark sky.
Mm.
So it kind of looks like a little foggy spot
Mm.
with your eyes.
That's interesting as well because in the southern hemisphere, the Cancer season and when it's the darkest.
Yeah, exactly. But either way, it's extreme. Whether it's the brightest or the darkest, it's an extreme. It's the maximum point before the sun turns around and goes the other direction.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the that specific cluster, that star cluster is called the Beehive cluster. It's also called the manger because apparently the ancient Greeks saw it as a manger, and the two stars next to it were donkeys who were eating from the manger. And the donkeys represented Dionysus and his servant Silenus, who rode into battle against the Titans. So there's all this mythology there that one could explore with the constellation of Cancer.
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't realize how much information there would be around the Cancer sign and the zodiac. But again, I think it also relates to the history and the past and the primordial images and how it relates to everything that's ancient.
Hmm. Yeah, and 12 years ago, so a Jupiter cycle ago, the astronomers discovered a couple planets around a couple of stars in that Beehive cluster, in the Manger cluster,
Right.
which were unique because, yes, there have been already a lot of planets discovered around stars. They're called exoplanets, but these specific stars are sun-like stars. So there's this sense where there's just something very human about that. Like exoplanets are on sun-like star in the manger, in the breast of the of the crab. And the crab part's not human. That's very animal-like, but everything else is human-like.
Fair enough. Yeah,
And
that's a really
that's
important point. The womb and the mother and the breasts and
mhm.
all of those relating to and and birth as well. So again, I feel like it's important to mention that, especially when it comes to the cardinal energy of Cancer.
Yeah, the manger with the baby and the breasts. I mean, it's very cancer imagery.
For sure.
All right, that's about all I feel like I really needed to mention, I think.
I feel like that I've mentioned everything that was important in my research as well. And I think it's a great time to close off this episode. I'm really excited for the next one too on Leo. I feel like one reason is because it's related to joy and everything. So, guys, keep your eye out for that. We're going to do that probably, I don't know, in a month time or something. But all of your information hasn't changed, right? You will send me whatever we need to put in the description as well,
Yeah,
how people
same.
can contact you, how people can get a reading from you as well if they
Mhm.
feel like it. You've been doing your own podcast. You've also done a podcast on someone else's show recently as well. We
I
can add
just
that in.
recorded, yeah, I just recorded two 2-hour podcasts about the major arcana of the tarot in a very specific format, where we traced all 22 cards of the major arcana as a path of the soul's path through the major arcana.
Yeah, perfect. Beautiful. So that will all be in the description below so people can.
Yeah, that's with Astral's podcast.
Yeah. Anyway, awesome. Well, thank you, Noah, so much for your time and
Yeah,
thank you for
thank
your
you.
research. Yeah, this was a really fun one. I really enjoyed
It
it.
was
I
great
didn't know we had
conversation.
so much in common around music as well, so that's really cool.
I know that's awesome. All
Yeah.
right, Anastasia, thank you so much. I'll see you
Thank you
soon.
guys. And that's all she wrote.
All right.